over to our president, Linnell Philman, to kick us off.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. As Deb said, I'm Linnell Philman. I have the honor of being your president for League of Women Voters here at Jacksonville First Coast. And I also have the honor of introducing our guest speaker for today. So Manny Velásquez-Paredes is an award-winning experienced marketing and personal branding manager with nearly a decade of experience working in professions focused on multicultural diversity and LGBTQ communities. He's a dynamic, bicultural, and bilingual professional. His experience includes providing training and education to organizations such as us today, communities and government agencies on gender identity, how to serve the LGBTQ community, and advocacy. In addition, he has years of experience working with and mentoring young people with gender identity issues, coming out, bullying, financial literacy, and self-care. Manny, otherwise known as MVP, is a creative individual who takes pride on being a strategic thinker who continues to challenge himself. Currently, he serves as a mentor on the board of directors for the New York chapter of Prospanica, where he has also held positions as marketing VP, executive vice president, and president. He has also served on the MBA advisory board for Monroe College in New York and was honored by Latino Leaders magazine, chosen as one of the top 25 Latino leaders in New York. He was the first recipient of the National LGBTQ Journalist Association Excellence in Travel Writing, and was also awarded the Empire Star Public Service Award for his work with the Hispanic and LGBTQ community, chosen among thousands of finalists with the New York State, within New York State, and awarded by Governor Cuomo. Manny moved from Long Island, New York with his husband, Jose, their two children, Maximus and Jasleen, and their dog, Shiru. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, Manny. I apologize if I got it wrong. And he has recently joined the UNF family as director of their LGBTQ Center and has already been recognized for his community work with the LGBTQ Plus Leadership Award at the Florida LGBTQ Plus Summit. So, and if I'm not mistaken, he and his husband are also the owners of Connections Travel Magazine, and also the Virtual Connections, which actually highlights travel for all, but really focuses on the LGBTQ family experience and travel. So with that, welcome, Manny, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for allowing me to take a little bit of your time today. I would love for us to be able to continue the conversation going. So you've got my contact information in there. Feel free to reach out if there's anything I can do for you specifically. As it was mentioned already, if you have any specific questions throughout this presentation, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand, and hopefully Deb or Laura can keep an eye on what's going on, because I'm going to try to focus on the presentation itself. But if you just want to, shout out and let me know that there's a question going on or something that I need to address right away, definitely will go ahead and do so. So just a little bit of discussion expectations. I want this to be a conversation, right? I can hear myself talk for hours and be completely satisfied with that, but obviously that is not what I want us to be able to accomplish here. I want this to be an actual conversation between us. So definitely feel free to chime in as you would like, and I'll try to keep an eye on the chat as well. Hopefully I can kind of multitask between the slideshows and the chat as well, but definitely let's begin that conversation going. I'm sure everybody is familiar with the Vegas rule. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? So ours is a little bit different in the sense that we've modified it. So what we do ask you is that if you do hear or say anything that is private, you can take the educational part of it and share that with the world, but the names shall stay in this room with us. So try to not mention specific names and people when it comes to those things. Check your presumptions at the door. That is one of our favorite ones. You can pick them out on your way out, but for the time being, just leave them out there. Come in with an open heart and an open mind. Move in and move out. If you're anything like me, you love the mic. We actually call this the one mic, one diva rule. So just keep in mind that everybody would like to have their thoughts said. So make your comment and then just let somebody else speak. I will always use only I statements when I speak with you. I cannot speak for every single gay Latino male out there between the ages of, we won't talk about that, But I can hopefully expect all of you to also speak just about your own individual I statements, right? Because we can only talk about our own personal experiences. Practice forgiveness. This is huge, and I'm going to ask because I lived and learned it. During the course of this presentation, you may hear, I may say, you may say something that hurts somebody's feelings, that hurts your own beliefs. Just realize that it is coming from a place of an educational perspective. So we are asking you once again, keep an open heart and an open mind, and be brave. Always, my career is based on sharing my personal life. But if you feel like doing so, you are welcome to do that. I just ask you to be brave when you're speaking with your own lived experiences. So a little bit about today's programming. We're going to first have some introductions. We're going to talk about some of the challenges to equity, talk a little bit about discrimination and harassment, and then being an ally. That's really what we're all here for. And then I'll provide you with some quick resources that you can take with you. So introduction, that is my picture, which is heavily photoshopped, as you can probably tell. I am the Director of Student Affairs here at the University of North Florida LGBTQ Center. What makes our center a little bit different from others is the fact that because we are the only LGBTQ center in Jacksonville, we work with not just the UNF community, but we work with the entire Jacksonville community as well as surrounding areas. We work very closely with Jasmine. Jasmine, I always say that Jasmine is one of our sister organizations. Their group is for the ages of 13 to 23. We cover everything in between. So that's why we're able to work together. I always tell people that I am a triple threat. I am Latino, I am gay, and I am educated. It's a weird combination, but there are plenty of us out there. And as you mentioned, I am an award-winning journalist. I love to travel, and being a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and being a lover of writing as well, I felt that it was an easy transition for me to move into travel writing. And that has allowed me to travel with my family to many different places around the world, and for us to be able to talk about our stories. My children are following on our footsteps. They've created the Kids Corner version, so they get to tell their own individual stories as traveling with two dads in very specific places. I've held many different titles. I've worked for-profit organizations, nonprofit organizations. I've worked for governmental agencies, but my favorite titles are husband and dad. My pronouns are he, him, and él. I always put the él in there because I am Latino, so I want to make sure that I represent my community. So to talk a little bit about some of the challenges to equity, we have to be able to talk about some words that are hopefully in everybody's mind as you're dealing with this situation. Implicit bias, right? These are some words that when we talk about them in usually negative experiences when it comes to LGBTQ individuals. Implicit bias has to do with the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, the actions, the decisions in an unconscious manner. They can be favorable or unfavorable, right? And they occur involuntarily and without intentional control. Then we talk about prejudice. Prejudice is a negative feeling or assumption about a person, a group, or thing without adequate knowledge to do so without guaranteed accuracy, right? A lot of prejudices are taught, right? Prejudices are taught that they are not a part of something that we are born with. Discrimination. Discrimination is treating people unfairly because of their membership to a particular group. And oppression. Oppression is a widespread and systemic pattern of prejudice and discrimination that is based upon the membership in specific social groups. So these words, although they may sound similar at times, and we may want to use them interchangeably, they've got very specific definitions within them, and they're very powerful in their own right. And hopefully these are things that we are trying to overcome as a community. To talk about discrimination and harassment a little bit, LGBT individuals are faced with many different challenges in many different segments of public and private life. And these are just some of those places where we face this type of discrimination. I can tell you that as close to yesterday, as a matter of fact, we encountered a very difficult situation here on campus for us. We were gearing to have our Pride Fest event. As you may be aware, we just had River City Pride, which was celebrated here in Jacksonville on Saturday. And we knew that some of our students may not have been able to attend it, whether due to transportation or due to not being out with their families, whatever the case. So we decided to create something on campus, that it would be our very own Pride Parade and a very own festival of being proud and being a member of the LGBTQ plus community. And fortunately, as we posted a video online talking about our event and inviting people to join us, we encountered some very negative comments. We encountered some very surreal threats to us, to our team. So I had to make the hard decision of canceling that event, which left us really brokenhearted, as you can all imagine, especially because our students were not going to be able to take part of this tradition, right? But we felt that everybody's mental health and safety was way more important than anything else to deal with. But that is just some of the places where we can encounter this type of homophobia or transphobia or biphobia. It can happen at work, it can happen in school, in your public life, it can happen in your own family. There have been so many events, especially because of the fact that we've been living in this virtual world. Social media has become an outlet for many of us to be able to keep in touch with our families and our friends and all that. But at the same time, it has also become a weapon, right? For many of us to be attacked. And words do hurt. They hurt a lot. And we try to, as I told my team, we need to be like the phoenix and we need to rise from the ashes and we need to move forward. And the next event that we hold, it's going to be bigger, louder, and stronger and brighter than ever, because we need to show nobody's going to shut us down and nobody's going to put us back in the closet. So these are just some of those places. So in order for you to be able to assist us in making sure that this doesn't happen in everyday life, in your own family, in your place of employment, then we ask you to be an ally. We ask you to be a true ally. And a true ally is somebody who rejects the dominant ideology, somebody who actually takes action, somebody who actually gets involved and does something. So it's not just simply posting a message on social media. It's doing more than that, right? You're all the League of Women's Voters. I've been taking my children to vote since they were able to walk. They would go and vote with me because it is something that I feel very strongly about. I know that my voice matters, and I know that it is up to each one of us to elect those individuals and those officials that are going to allow us to live in a better community, right? So our own individual culture matters. So my children have been going to vote with us ever since they can walk, and they know that it is something that they are hopefully going to do themselves as they grow up and become adults of voting age. But think of that little bird as an ally, right? Where everybody else is going against it, that little bird decides to go against that and try to keep on moving forward as much as I can. It is thinking outside the box. It is doing your own research. It is asking questions, right? When no questions are being asked. If you go to a political rally and the people on stage are discussing their plans and you don't hear anything from an LGBTQ perspective or other underprivileged community perspective, ask the questions. What are their specific plans? Do not allow them to just give you the political talk and, just use the words that sound pretty, but you want to know actions. You want to know what are their specific agenda and how are they going to make that happen. And that is what a true ally does. So these are some basic steps on how to become an ally. I am sure that you're all familiar with, so I am going to go through these a little bit quickly, just to be on the safe side, because I do want to touch upon them. But definitely any questions, thoughts, concerns, pushback that you may have, feel free to reach out via the chat, or I see something in the chat right now. Let me just double check on that. Oh, thank you. It was just letting us know how to do the questions. So becoming aware. First of all, in order for you to become aware that there are people who are different than us, you have to become aware of who you truly are, right? Who are you on the inside? Who are you when there's nobody around you? Who are you amongst your friends, amongst your peers? Are you different individuals? Are you the same person here and there? Because that says a lot about you. So knowing your true self allows you to be able to speak up for others. I always tell people about being your unapologetically you, right? That is a very difficult task for some of us to be able to accomplish. But I feel that I spend in work mode at least 12 to 13 hours of my day. I spend with my family awake, right? The time that counts, at 3 to 4 hours, perhaps at most. And then the rest of the time is sleeping, right? So if you are not unapologetically yourself 100% of the time, because you have to be hidden in that closet during your work time for whatever closet you're in, right? Then how can you truly offer 100% positive work for anybody that you're working for? If you are not there 100%, then you cannot be there to provide your best self, your best foot forward. So becoming aware is a huge, huge step. Then educating yourself, right? Because now that you've become aware of who you truly are, you want to know what else is out there for the rest of your community. So you want to be able to research real facts, right? You want to be able to challenge the media, challenge your leaders, challenge. I remember being a child growing up in Jehovah's Witness religion. And I remember being 6, 7, or 8. And I remember asking my elders, why are women not allowed to be an elder of the church? Why are women not allowed to be a major speaker? Why can they only be on stage with a second individual? And it's always them presenting some sort of act. This was in my own individual religion, right? Why are there people that are not allowed to come in to our church? And this created a lot of questions for my elders. This created a lot of issues for my family because I kept asking them these questions, and the answers they were giving me as a 6 or 7-year-old, I knew that they were just trying to make me to be quiet and not ask any more questions. They were not giving me real honest answers, probably because I didn't have them, probably because that was their culture at the time. But also probably because nobody ever questioned them before, right? So be that voice, do your own research, ask those questions, find out statistics, read real life stories, literature, attend trainings like this one or others similar to us, and then engage in self-examination. Those are really good ways to be able to educate yourself. And obviously right now we live in an age where fake news has become the norm, or the fact that people just read headlines in social media. Go beyond that. Please go beyond that to be able to make the right choice for you and your community. Creating an open and supportive environment. So how are we able to do this, right? How can we encourage and promote respect? How can you present yourself as an open and supportive individual? What can you do to move beyond, to move the needle beyond the norm? Or because nobody's ever done it before. That's why The Matrix is one of my favorite movies, because, you know, when they were talking about that whole spoon situation, if you're familiar with the movie, is it because it's never happened before that you think it can't happen? Well, just because it's never happened before doesn't mean that it can't. It just means that you're going to be the pioneer to make it happen, right? So take that approach, appreciate it, and support diversity, your diversity plans, and your own individual jobs. Do they have inclusive language um, in your day-to-day jobs? Do they have uh, policies speaking against racism, speaking against homophobia, or including words like gender identity and gender expression, or transphobia, like including those words in your policies? Is that something that your organization is doing? Or do they have a blanket statement? We support all, which is wonderful, which is amazing, but it doesn't specify what you stand for. It doesn't spell it out. So it is up to you to challenge your own individual organizations and say, hey, we need to look at our inclusive policy and make it really inclusive by adding these words, right? Access and resources. Where can you find these resources? Hopefully your HR has resources. If they do not, as it comes to LGBTQ issues, come to me. I'll be more than happy to educate your HR department on all LGBTQ issues as much as possible. We provide safe space training, which is a 3-hour seminar that we have been able to do with many different organizations out around the US, not just within Jacksonville. So yeah, reach out to your local LGBTQ center. If not us, somebody else out there. If you're not within Jacksonville, somebody else out there. Check out those local and national resources. Find out how they can provide you as an individual and then your organization with more resources for you to be able to have for your individual groups. Advocating on our behalf, that is basically the last step, and that's where you can become a true ally, right? When you can actually speak on behalf of others that are less privileged than you are. I have to acknowledge my own individual privileges as a gay man, that I've often been told, well, you don't sound gay or you don't look gay. I'm not sure what that means, but that is a privilege that I have, right? That I can blend in apparently in regular groups. So I need to be able to acknowledge that that is a part of what makes me easier to be able to communicate with others. But standing up for what is basic human rights. My children, we had a huge discussion the other day because they have to stand up in school for the Pledge of Allegiance. They're like, Daddy, they talk about, you know, equality and unity for all, but that's not the case. I'm like, I understand that, honey. That is the ideal that we're trying to achieve. And I told them, I said, if you don't feel comfortable standing up for something that doesn't speak to you specifically, let me know and I'll speak to your schools, because you don't have to stand up if that's not something that allows you, that it makes you uncomfortable to do. So having those discussions with children, listening to them, allows us to be able to figure out they're a lot smarter than we give them credit for sometimes, and a lot more in tune a lot of times. So these are just the basic steps of being a true ally, but these are some ways that we can actually implement them, right? Featuring your non-discrimination policies on your websites, making your diversity aspect of your organization a huge topic up front and circle, so that anybody, whether it's a potential customer, a potential client, a potential employee, can see they're listening. They are looking at me. I am an individual who is actually a part of the community. I am being seen by others. I am being heard by others. By utilizing pronouns, you can utilize the pronouns in your email signatures. You can utilize them here in your Zoom. Zoom loves to continue to delete my pronouns. Normally you would see my pronouns next to my name. It continues to delete them, and I try to go in there. I didn't realize that it was gone until just now when I mentioned that. Normally you would see my pronouns there, but including them, if you hold a meeting, right, the first thing that you do, even if you know everybody around the room, we can say, let's have some basic introductions. Everybody give us your name, your job title, and your personal pronouns. Just by adding that into the conversation, you're already making people feel safer. If you have to write bios for your organization, then when you are talking about an individual within those bios, just putting their pronouns in parentheses, it allows others to be able to know how to address them. If you're creating press releases, likewise, whenever you're introducing individuals in there, include in the press release after the name the pronouns of the individuals. If you have digital boards in your organization or social media, definitely feel free to reach out to them. Business cards, name tags, wherever you can think of adding them, wherever a name is added, you can put personal pronouns in there as well. And notice that I keep saying personal pronouns. I don't say preferred pronouns, because preferred implies that it is something that is a choice for us, right? And it's not, because our pronouns define who we are as individuals, so they are not our choice. They are what we are, what represents us. Using preferred names in whether is in hiring packets, right? You usually have 10,000 forms to fill out in hiring packets. Having a little bracket or parentheses for preferred name, that allows the person to be seen. Allowing individuals the opportunity to be able to use their preferred name versus their legal name on an everyday business setting, because somebody may be thinking about transitioning and they don't know how to go through that entire process. They don't know what are the legal ways to be able to do that. But just by allowing them to use their preferred name in a business setting, day-to-day operations, makes that person feel more comfortable, makes them feel seen. Okay, I see some questions in there. I'm going to tackle that specific, something was just messaged to me directly, and I'll definitely tackle it because it is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Whoever sent me the message, you know what I'm referring to. Allowing your organization to include LGBTQ voices in events, in advertising, in newsletters, making it day-to-day operations, not just during Pride Month. We love it that you can celebrate with us during Pride Month. We love it that we can be a part of your educational process during October, which is LGBTQIA+ History Month. But we want to be acknowledged year-round, right? That is the difference between being accepted and being just tolerated, right? Being just tolerated only allows us to be able to be a little bit part of the community, whereas being accepted, we're a part of the community. We're there, we're embracing each other, right? So allowing us to do that. Having visible support for anything that is related to an LGBTQ event. We just had River City Pride, as I mentioned, in Jacksonville this past Saturday. And there were so many different organizations that had a booth set up because they wanted to acknowledge their support for the community, or they marched in the parade because they wanted to show front and center that they were there. That's huge. Getting out of your comfort zone. That is when you know that you have really done all of your homework and you are a true ally, because you are now facing your own fears of being judged, of being out there, and you're allowing them to be able to you're allowing other voices to be heard, right? Addressing current events. Lots of things that are happening in the news. I'm going to read the comment that was just sent to me because I think it has to do with current events, and I'll read it out loud and then we'll have a chat about it. says, lately, I feel overwhelmed by everything DeSantis is doing. DeSantis and Corcoran, give vouchers to private schools that openly discriminate against LGBTQ individuals. According to an article I read, is that illegal? Asked another way, can public funds be given to public-private initiative organizations that discriminate based on sexual orientation or gender identity? We live in Florida, where a lot of the laws are anti-LGBTQ when you really look at them. Most recently, a anti-trans athlete ban was passed in the state of Florida, right? On the outskirt of that specific bill and many other bills, they're created as family focus, they're created as religious freedoms, they're created as we're trying to protect the children. But when you look deep down in them and you actually read the language that is being utilized, they are very especially LGBTQ focused, right? This particular anti-trans bill that was passed specifically picks on trans women. Not just trans women, but trans youth women, right? Because it targets schools specifically. I just want you to put yourselves in their shoes for 1 second and imagine if you are a person who is questioning your own identity, you're questioning your own gender identity, and you're not sure what is happening because on top of everything else, you're going through puberty, you're going through midterms, you're going through everything that schools have to go through, the bullying, the little cliques and the groups within the different social groups in schools, right? And then the people who are supposed to protect you, your political leaders who are supposed to protect you, or your school administration who is supposed to protect you, says that you are less than the rest of the students because you are either not perhaps knowing the language, you are not who you feel to be the gender that you were born with, right? Or because you're a little different, because perhaps you have the right gender, but you are more on the feminine side, and you're not supposed to do that because boys are not supposed to be that way, right? Boys are not supposed to cry. So imagine these laws telling you every single day that you are less than somebody else. How do you think that when somebody's trying to deal with just puberty, which sucks, I'm going through 2 teens right now, and I know what they're going through as teens. So on top of everything else, imagine having to deal with these particular situations, right? Because now your leaders are telling you that you are less than everybody else. And they're passing laws against you. And your school is telling you that you have to wear pants because you have genitalia that is supposed to be male in between your legs, right? So therefore you cannot wear a skirt or you cannot wear a dress. How would you feel, right? So those are the things that we are dealing with on a daily basis. Imagine what happened to us yesterday, which is a true story. You know, we were so hyped. We had worked so hard on this project. We were going to do such a great event for our students to show their pride on campus. And then we have all these threats that are coming against us, right? And this is our everyday. This is what we have to deal with every single day for us. So when I love it when people say, well, that's your choice to be gay. Really? Because if I'm a smart individual, I've got an MBA, and I'm going to make a choice to live this particular type of life that has so many downfalls, right? Not a choice. But that's a different soapbox of a different day. But yeah, So hopefully I answered the question that you asked me. As far as the legality is concerned, there are many things in the state of Florida that people can get away with based on our laws, unfortunately. So yeah, I'll just go leave it at that. And here, speaking of laws and policies, here we go. These are some of the things that were passed. The Human Rights Ordinance was passed in 2017 in Jacksonville, was challenged in 2018, challenged in 2019. It was once again passed in 2020. It's a very simple ordinance that basically says you cannot be fired for being gay or being a member of the LGBTQ+ community. Simple, right? But it wasn't in the books. So therefore, we could have been fired. I could have been fired for having my husband's picture on my desk, right? So those are the things that you have to think about. Between last year and this year, over 250 plus bills have been introduced. Maybe this number is probably outdated at this point. And like I mentioned before, a lot of these are disguised under religious freedom. The adoption bills that they're basically saying that if an organization receives, if an organization deals with adoptions and foster care and they are related to a specific religion, they can legally not allow a gay couple to adopt from them, and they can legally turn them down just because it's a gay couple, right? Or conversion therapy. Those are things that a lot of those affect me specifically on a personal level because I am a dad of 2 kids and I fought the adoption system. My husband actually went through conversion therapy when he was younger. He's got 3 to 4 years of his life that he knows nothing about. He cannot remember what happened to him during that time at all. It's missing from his brain because of the fact that he went through conversion therapy. Obviously, HIV/AIDS, education, healthcare, discriminations. There's so many different things that are going on. And I know you're all educated on these topics, so I'm not going to harp on them, but I'm going to ask you personally to please speak on our behalf, right? Speak for us, because I see a lot of what my job is to lend a voice to those who can't be heard. And I want to use all of you, please, if you can, to be that megaphone for us, to go out there and do what you can to make sure that a lot of these next rules that are coming up in the next few cycles do not go through. So here are some local resources here for Jacksonville. Of course, my office, we are here to be able to assist you, the LGBTQ Center. Jacksonville PFLAG is a great organization. If you have a child or a younger person in your family or friends who are of the LGBTQ plus community. Jasmine, our sister organization, they work closely with children 13 and up to 23. They do a lot of amazing projects with them. The Jacksonville Coalition for Equality, it's a group of all of us, many different organizations that deal with LGBTQ issues that get together to try to work and make it a better community for us. Community Fund for Northeast Florida provides many of us, my center included, with financial resources to be able to do all the things that we do in the form of grants. And here are some national resources that you can always as well reach out to. GLSEN, National LGBT Task Force, the Trevor Project, which is one of my favorite organizations because it deals with LGBTQ youth homelessness, National Center for Transgender Equality, and of course the Human Rights Campaign, which is sort of like the granddaddy of all the nonprofit organizations. They do a lot of lobbying, which is great on our behalf. So at this point, I would love to open up the floor. I kind of neglected the chat a little bit, but I think I'm caught up. But Any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, pushback, I am here.